Welcome to Around Town, featuring what's happening here in the greater Concord area. I'm your host, Patten. It's a pleasure to welcome you back as we now say hello to September, and just think the primaries are on their way. Next week at this time they'll be over with and on to November, but we've got some big things on the agenda yet. And today I'm pleased to have Steve Marchand, who was here earlier this summer and recorded a show. However, there was a little boo-boo, and we got half of it. He sounded good in half of it, but we want to get all of him, and that means his face and everything else along with his voice. But it was nobody's fault. It was just a case of Mother Nature was screwing around with us, and that's how it goes.
It happens.
But I was very pleased to hear he is, and so that's good. Yeah, Steve, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Getting ready for a big rowdy dow tonight, maybe, or just a plain coffee chat or whatever. But
maybe somewhere in between, in between a coffee chat and a rowdy.
All I can say is, at least it hasn't been as nasty as the national politics are. I can tell you that much. That to me has turned me right off.
It's turning a lot of people off, and I think one of the things, no matter what you believe, Republican, Democrat, whatever, folks want leaders that are more aspirational. Tell me what you're for. Tell me a little bit less about what you're against.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of how we can get people engaged at a higher level.
All I can say is, and I shouldn't say this, but I just pray to the Heavenly Father or whatever that they don't put so-and-so in November, and I don't mean...
I think we know what you mean.
dump the Trump, whatever they are, but oh my goodness, the stuff that comes out. But so I'm happy that the governor's race so far has not been as nasty as that, and hopefully when the primary is over with, that whoever the two people are that are running for governor won't be, well, actually I guess it's 3 or 4 of them, because there's a libertarian running as well as another party out there too. So, but with that in mind, since we saw you this summer, what's going on? Have you changed on anything that you were for or against, or are you taking a second look at?
Not so much. There are, certainly in terms of the race, it's gotten tighter and tighter.
Really?
Since I got in, I got in later than the other candidates, so I started with a little lower name ID.
Oh, yeah.
And was down maybe about 10 or 12 in the polls when I started, but with many people undecided. And then when we got to July, they did another poll, UNH, and they said I got the highest name ID and was down about 5 points. And so that's progress. And then about 3 weeks ago, a poll came out that showed me up about 2.5. Again, highest name ID. And then another poll came out this week that showed me down a couple, all within that margin of error, which basically makes it a tie, but with a huge percentage that say they don't know, they haven't decided, 70 to 80%. So it's a crapshoot. Anything could happen next Tuesday, and we're all going to work really hard to try to finish first.
Normally, primaries do not attract attention. I mean, there'll be some that'll be out, obviously, but normally primaries people stay away from.
It's true.
But this year, because there are contests in both sides on governor and senator and 2nd District Congress, we don't have this time, I don't think. I know there is on the Republican side, but I think the Democrat, she's all set, but then come November, they'll be against each other. And then you get down to the Executive Council, which none of us have heard anything about.
That's right.
And then down to the county offices, legislative and state senate and all that. But, it's just, I can't imagine the money that's being spent out there.
Well, there's a story just this afternoon out in, I think, the Concord Monitor, or the Associated Press, that said they now estimate that over $100 million between the candidates themselves and the outside groups in the U.S. Senate race between Governor Hess and Senator Ayotte, $100 million in a little state.
Yeah, and here I am trying to raise $8,000 for my Christmas tree lighting, and I can't get what I'd like because somebody dropped me off $1,000 that used to gave last year and didn't this year, and I was a little disappointed with the check I got, but I can't say nothing because I'm appreciative of what anybody donates. But when you go year to year and you're struggling, and there's always some excuse, and then you have these 3 or 4 who do give you a good donation, and next year So, that's my problem. I'm trying to raise funds, but there's always an excuse. Oh, well, the candidates are grabbing the money. Well, what about traditions here at home?
It's true that as the role of fundraising gets bigger in these competitive races, the money is coming from somewhere else, and it's one of two things. Usually, it's either big out-of-state money, which is not healthy for the system, I think, or if it's coming from in-state, that's better. Except it means it's probably coming out of some other cause or effort, and it could be local efforts.
We got stuck last year for a $250 donation for the Christmas parade because we were promised by the Bernie Sanders campaign they would pay the $250 to have his bus in there. Never got it. I've sent letters and stuff, and that's gone byward. So tough luck, basically. So you learn your lesson. So in 4 years, there'll be no more of that stuff going on if I'm still around. But it's sad because you do try to accommodate people, but. So has your positions changed much from the passenger rail or the, what do you call it, Northern Pass up there? Or
nothing's really changed.
Minimum wage?
Nothing really changed. Since we were last year, the National Telegraph endorsed me in the primary. I think that's arguably the most important of the endorsements among the papers because none of us have a natural Nashua story or roots. Yeah. And it's obviously one of the biggest cities, the second biggest city in the state. Yeah. So that clearly on some level they felt comfortable with my position on an important issue down there like rail, but also I think understood that I see it in the context of other infrastructure improvements that we have to do: bridges, roads, water, wastewater, sewer. These are the core essential pieces of infrastructure for local government, and I feel like over the last 40, 50 years. State government has steadily been disengaging with local government in helping build partnerships that would make these important infrastructures investments affordable, even for smaller towns. When you ask a small town to do a sewer project, a water, a wastewater project, school building type project, that's a very heavy lift for the vast majority of New Hampshire towns. So I feel like we have to get back in the game a little bit to build those partnerships. Not only will that allow infrastructure to occur again, I also think it'll save us money in the long run because you can build efficiencies of scale by getting towns to work together where they can. And you can get a lot more value per dollar. That kind of goes back to my auditing days a little bit. So we could do a really good job getting more value per dollar, I think, if we do what we used to do a few generations ago.
I know, because to me, rail service is needed. And like I was telling somebody the other day, if Nashville wants it, or Manchester too, why not let them make a deal with MBTA or the Amtrak or something? What's the harm in it? Let them build a partnership there.
And I think that's where this is going to go. I think that, especially in Nashua.
Yeah.
Nashua is very hungry for it.
They do. They want it badly.
Yeah. And obviously they're the southernmost community of the ones that we're talking about. So I think they're going to be willing to do what they have to do with the private sector, working with Massachusetts to be part of the investment to make it happen, to take some of the pressure off at the state level. Because when you go to Claremont or Conway or Berlin, if you go outside of that corridor we're talking about, it's important to explain to them how this piece of infrastructure could be part of a very helpful menu. So we tell them, look, I'm not going to be, and I think I do this better than the other candidates, this would not come at the expense of bridges and roads and reversal of the opiate crisis and school building. It's a piece, an important piece, but it's a piece of this big infrastructure package over the next 10 to 15 years. And that gets folks into the conversation that otherwise sometimes I think feel a little left out of it.
I mean, the longer it goes on and on, it's like the casino thing. It's like, my goodness. The highways are loaded with people. And people complain every weekend or whatever that they can't get down through or what. Then put the train in. Let them go for it. But yeah, the opioid crisis, that's been another big thing in the news. But the drug problem's been growing for years anyway.
Yeah.
It's been going on and on. Even when I was in school, they had kids with marijuana, or some of them got heroin or something, and then the other higher up stuff. But yes, it is a big problem. People are out there dealing in it and all that. But
Well, something you just said, Dick, that's important. And on the MUR debate Tuesday night, I made a point of saying this. It's, if we're being honest about how it got to this point, both parties, all levels of government, were slow to the draw in terms of acknowledging the magnitude of the heroin crisis. And I actually think at the local level, they probably were the quickest to recognize the problem because they were at the street level. But if we move up the layers of government, probably because they were a little further away from the challenge, we were all a little bit slower. And the good news is I do think it's an opportunity for bipartisanship, because I talk to my Republican and Democratic friends, and when they see how big a deal this is, we're able to have conversations that on a lot of other issues you can't get past go on. So that gives me some optimism. But I've been specific in my time over the last year talking to people that start and try to start recovery centers, and they say it's not a lot of money, but it's really localized money. Allow the people, often themselves in recovery, that know the people that need help.
Sure.
Let that relationship occur at the local level and provide operating money that can allow them to do the work that they're doing rather than have to chase around $10,000 grant proposals every day, and makes it hard for them to get the work done. Yeah. So that's one place where when I realized that over many months, that affected the plan that I've put together, and it's about an $8 million a year plan of localized money.
I know, because it just... And then you've got the casino. I think that, in a way, I don't know. I think that's kind of had its day. I don't know. I don't hear much about that now, too much.
No, I will say I don't support expanded gambling, and I think that even many folks I know who do express concern that Massachusetts, whether one was for it or against it back in the day, the fact that Massachusetts appears to be going forward on some casinos makes the math a little tougher for advocates.
Well, it's true. I mean, I like it, but I don't go all the time. But we go once a year, maybe to Vegas. We go. The wife will go down to Foxwoods, whatever, and when we've gone to Plain Ridge or whatever it is down in Massachusetts, I don't care for it as much.
You ever been to the one in Montreal?
Oh yes.
Right.
The French, I haven't speak French.
Yeah.
And you can tell when they're speaking French and you're there playing the machine. And if you win, gosh forbid, because you have
you'll definitely learn some one-word French expressions real quick. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But it is a nice facility. It's non-smoking, of course, but we've been up there once or twice.
Yep.
But the only thing is I like keeping it here in my state. I hate giving the money to Connecticut or Nevada or whatever. But then you talk about expanding gambling. But I was over to the sweepstakes office the other day, and they had 5 new games come out for scratch tickets. 5. They had a new $10 one.
Okay.
They had 3 $5 new ones coming out. And 3 or 4 of the $1 tickets or $2 tickets. They hadn't even come on out in the stands yet. They had them there to sell, but they haven't got them out the supermarkets. So what do you do? There you go there. It's expanded gambling, basically, no matter how you look at it.
Right. It's just scratching instead of...
Oh, yeah. That's right.
I mean, I would be curious to look more at when they've expanded the number of games. I mean, I'm no expert on this, but it seems like it's just the same... It's the same game. It's just different marketing and different branding.
Oh yeah, different themes.
1, 2, 5, 10.
The Patriot games are out now. That's the new one, the newest ones. The New England Patriots. That's out.
Oh, okay.
Now, probably in November, you'll see the Bruins come out, or the Celtics. Those games.
They'll just rotate it.
Yeah. And there was one out for maple syrup season this year. There was one for that.
Wow.
Christmas, those will be coming out 1st of November, and they'll have at least 5 different games of those. It's crazy, and yet members of the legislature will get up here and say about how addiction casino gambling is. Well, what the heck do you call that?
Yeah, that's true, and you see folks that'll go in and they just kind of scratch I mean, you're right. It can be addictive very quickly.
And the thing of it is, Steve, is that I've watched these people at different places, like Hannaford down here. Of course, the big Powerball winner has not shown up yet. That $1 billion winner has not shown up yet. So they don't know whether someone's being secretive and letting somebody else handle it, or I don't know. But they haven't shown up yet. And but the thing about gets you is that people will go down there and they'll say, "What's the last number on that ticket you've got?" 5. Oh, well, I don't want an odd number. I'd like an even number. Can you bypass that? Well, so they do. They will do that. They want a last number to be an even, because they heard that even number tickets are lucky ones. Well, it's not true, because I did that little bit. And it ain't lucky. You know, I don't think I've ever won more than $10 on a ticket, and that's few and far between. So I mean, it's interesting. And you got, like I said, the paper games with Powerball, and then of course, then Rockingham now has bit the dust.
Right.
So now there goes that. But yet they said they've got a lot of charitable gambling places down there who have bought suites down there or something, or whatever, they have signed up for places to hold their games in there. What the heck is that all about?
We have an interesting relationship with gambling in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And it's complicated, right? I mean, it goes with the track. It goes with being the first state in America to have the sweepstakes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It goes with the generation-long, maybe more, kind of ping-ponging on where we are on the casino concept.
Yeah.
And obviously all the scratch tickets and these sort of things as well. It's a complicated. You know, I happen to oppose expanded gaming, but I also know it's a complicated issue and that we have elements of it already. So it's being intellectually consistent on it in New Hampshire is really hard.
Yeah. You know, it's amazing. I can remember when it used to be just one thing. That was it. The sweepstakes down at Rockingham, and that was all.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, boy, in come the dollar scratch tickets.
And of course, we had Seabrook and Hinsdale.
Yeah, horse racing, dog racing. You had those.
Yep.
Yeah, Belmont. And of
Belmont.
course, Belmont went out with the dog racing, but yeah. And then you've got other expanded gambling coming in from other states, simulcast or whatever.
Right. That's true.
Las Vegas is going to get a sports team.
Hockey, right? NHL.
Yeah, and they're also looking at maybe a baseball team going out there too.
Well, it's certainly one of the biggest markets that doesn't have a Big Four sports team. In fact, it might be the biggest one now that doesn't have a Big Four, right?
Maybe. Yeah.
Nashville. Well, Nashville's got football.
Nashville's got one. I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Charlotte's got the football.
Yeah.
So it might be Vegas. And of
Could
course,
be.
it's a huge tourist attraction. So if they
Oh,
do it
that's
right,
the
they're going to
thing.
fill the place up.
But they're afraid of the gambling. So.
I guess so.
But
Well, that'll be interesting. I mean, I'm a big sports fan, so there are some markets that I think could handle. Well, actually, we were talking about Montreal earlier. I'm a dual citizen. I was born in the States, but my folks are from Quebec.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Ah.
So very Canadian background. And I've been to some Expos games back when they still had a team. And you'd go, and there'd be 5,000 people in the 60,000 seat concrete jungle. Like it's just.
Yeah.
You'd go in, and you get a ticket. And then between the exchange rate, if it's favorable at the time, and the fact there more seats than fans, we'd be going in, and for $4 a person, we'd be getting seats that by the third inning, we'd be down in the fifth row or something.
Well, there's talk of bringing a team back to Montreal, baseball team. So.
Yeah, they would need to. I think they'd need to do a small stadium that would probably be what do you call it? Retractable roof for the cold at the beginning and end of the season. You know, like a 30,000 seat stadium. The mayor of Montreal is a big fan of that. He's pushing that very hard right now. I know if they did that, I would go to a couple games a year. I think that would be a lot of fun. I think Montreal is a really fun city.
It's a very nice city. Of course, it's very Catholic up there, but it's a good city.
Oh, some of the most beautiful cathedrals in North America.
Yes, we went to one of them up there, but I don't know. But back to New Hampshire, close to the Northern Pass, that's starting to break news again, and about burying the lines and.
Yeah, you know, I think if they don't bury the lines, most people would say that if they don't bury the lines, it's very problematic for New Hampshire. I certainly agree with that.
Yeah.
But I also think that even if they bury the lines, it's not terribly helpful to New Hampshire. And the reason I say that is it seems that the ratepayer benefit to New Hampshire ratepayers would be very minimal in most of the drafts that they've come up with.
Yep.
Most of the ratepayer benefit would actually go south of here to Massachusetts and Connecticut.
I heard that. Yeah.
So Hydro-Quebec would make money, obviously, as the parent company. And they have power purchase agreements in Western Mass and Connecticut for ratepayers down there. They would enjoy a meaningful benefit. But for New Hampshire, I say it's basically a superhighway with no exit ramps.
Yeah.
And that's tough. And I think it would be disruptive. There are potential environmental concerns, even if they bury it. The way I say is, if they bury it, your best case scenario is cosmetic surgery with no aesthetic benefit.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's where we're at in your best case scenario, and I think it could be worse than that.
It's just, I don't know. And then, of course, the minimum wage is becoming an issue now, I notice.
Yep.
Yeah, of course, the Planned Parenthood, that was another big thing, and the Executive Council voted to fund it 3-2.
That's right. With Chris Sununu ending up being the swing vote on that one. And he's voted for it, he's voted against it, depending on the year.
Yeah.
And I think he's trying to play for the general election right now. But I think in terms of my personal belief system, I am a strongly pro-choice candidate. It is not. I don't want to get in the way. I feel like that's the most personal of decisions, and I just don't think it's appropriate for me to be involved in things that aren't my business.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of feel about many kind of civil liberty type issues. I just don't want to get. I don't want myself. I don't want government to get in the way of people's private and personal decisions, and that's one example. In terms of the minimum wage, you mentioned that a moment ago. I think one mistake that even the biggest fans of free trade now say is when China, for example, got involved in expanded trade, they thought that China would liberalize its government, not its economy.
Yeah.
It ended up being the other way around.
Oh, sure.
And so all of a sudden it flooded hundreds of millions of low-wage workers into the global market in a way that has really put the hammer down on the bottom half of the wage scale here in the U.S. and other places.
Yeah.
And I think you need a strong minimum wage in order to combat this very powerful global dynamic. And, the exact number, you got to deal with the legislature, but it's certainly a strong double digit, I think, at this point. And the way I describe it to people is it's a values thing a little bit. It should reflect both the value of the work that they're doing as well as the dignity of the person doing it. And that means it should be, I think, a strong minimum wage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because I was talking with somebody even today about the cost of cigarettes. I said, it's funny because years ago when I worked in a small store here on the Heights, it was 40 cents a pack for cigarettes. Or carton-wise, it was $2.75 for the regulars, or king size, or $3.50, $3.75 for the 100s. And she said, "Oh," and I said, and then she said, "Now they're up to like $70 for a carton." Can you imagine that? Spending that kind of money on cigarettes?
When I'm in the 12 items or less line, which is typically where folks go when they're buying cigarettes, I'd say at least once a month. That fact you've just said hits me square in the face. I'll be there with a quart of ice cream and a gallon of milk, and I'm taking out my $5 bill, and meanwhile there's somebody, and they say, "Give me a carton of cigarettes." I go, "Okay," and my first thought is it's gonna be $25. I don't know. I don't smoke. And then all of a sudden they say it's $70-$80. That is. I mean, that tells you how addictive cigarettes are, because that is such a high cost. And of course, the health disadvantages, the disease and discomfort it causes along the way. I mean, it's one of the most addictive things we have. And so I disagree, actually, with my two opponents who are looking to raise revenue by increasing the tobacco tax. I think it's an incredibly regressive tax. We know who it's hammering. It's hammering people that are addicted and that disproportionately are on the bottom half of the wage scale.
Yeah.
And we know that. And the only way it raises the money you hope it will, if you support it, is they got to keep smoking.
Yeah.
That's not good public policy. So that concerns me greatly, and so that's a difference between myself and the other two, I think.
It just amazes me to see all the different kind of brands they got. That's like I said to her today, the woman, I said, my gosh, I said, when I was in the store over here, I said, we didn't have that many brands. My gosh, it's amazing just how many brands they're selling.
It is, and by not advertising on TV, newspapers, and magazines like they did in the past, I think an interesting thing, it has increased their marketing overseas.
Yeah.
They've moved the dollars, and I think it also is sort of everybody, because they had to, said, okay, if none of us advertise, that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't have to compete.
Sure.
And they've been able to put it in other ways that are more subtle. But man, the addictive power of cigarettes is in evidence every time you watch somebody lay out serious money like that for something that they know is not good for them.
Of course it is, I know it.
So I certainly don't want to. I'm not looking to increase revenue on the backs of folks that clearly are battling addiction of a different kind.
Sure. I mean, that's what makes you laugh, and the legislators will stand up there saying how a casino is addictive. What do you call smoking? Hello, or alcohol. We get out in the liquor store and buy the bottles down there. I mean, that's kind of addictive, isn't it? So it's almost like, okay, you have your addiction, we all have addiction. So, but I don't know. It's just going to be an interesting election year.
It is.
And when November comes, boy, I'll be so glad when it's over with. But
we got about 60 days until the general election in November, and only we got less than a week until the primary.
I can't wait to decorate it for Halloween. It's like
the holidays are going to be extra festive, I think, for Americans, eh?
You know it. I mean, in fact, I leave in a few days for Ann Arbor for my annual football trip.
There you go.
Out to see the Wolverines.
Who are they playing? Who are they going to play in that game?
Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to go a couple weeks ago, but they hated Hawaii, but that was a blowout there.
Yeah, that Colorado, I presume that'll be a more competitive game. I haven't followed if Colorado's any good this year.
They haven't been good since they're joined the Pac-12, but and I know UNH is opening up for their brand new stadium this week.
Saturday night, first night game in history.
Holy Cross, yeah.
So that's going to be very exciting down there. They're going to the students, the alums. That's been a long time coming. I used to work at UNH, and that was in the dream stage, and they were able to do that. I think they did a nice job, and they were able to do it at a good price. And I think it'll generate a lot of revenue back to the university for marketing and ticket sales.
They got smashed out there in San Diego State last week. But
they typically play a division or D1 or whatever they call it now opponent every year. Yeah, 1A. So it's good for the program, get some exposure. But yeah, they usually get dinged up pretty strong against a team like that.
But if they're hoping to go up in class someday,
you got to start playing them.
They've got to have the stadium has to be a certain attendance, and that's not there yet.
Yep.
But who knows? But yeah, the football team has been very successful at UNH. And,
absolutely.
But what's good out in Michigan is I'm going to be meeting a couple of the Hampshire boys who are on the lacrosse team out there. So,
there you go.
Yeah, just about that. Well, Steve, is coming to a close for around town, and you got to get another debate going on shortly. But
preparing for a debate.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you for the chance to come back again. I think we got the audio visual.
We're sorry for what happened, but I'm glad you had a chance to come back in there. And so with that in mind, good luck on the rest of the race, and hopefully we'll see you in October for the November race. And
you got it.
Inauguration Day, and who knows, I'll be in the seats there at the legislature watching you.
Well, I hope we're both there.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll be. So
there you go. Thank you again, Dave. I appreciate it.
No problem. Good luck. And with that in mind, thanks to Ian, my director there, and have a great weekend. Look forward to seeing you soon and around town. I'm Dick Patten.